Have you ever wondered, what exactly sparked the recent surge in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Well, today we're going to dissect the timeline of events leading up to this recent crisis, in an attempt to understand the complexities of this long-standing conflict. Rewind to the spring of 2021. Clashes erupted between Israeli security forces and Palestinians at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. This highly sensitive area, known as Temple Mount to Jews, became the epicenter of violence, leading to fears of a renewed Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Fast forward to April 2022, the situation escalated as deadly attacks on Israelis by Palestinian assailants and Israeli army killings of Palestinians in the West Bank stirred tensions. The atmosphere in Jerusalem grew increasingly tense, and Palestinian leaders warned of possible escalation. Then in November 2022, the Israeli general election saw the potential return to power of Benjamin Netanyahu. His likely alliance with ultra-nationalist figures sparked concerns among Palestinians, who feared it could lead to further conflict and more extreme occupation measures. Just as the global community is closely monitoring the developments in the Middle East, India has also been keeping a watchful eye on the situation. Traditionally, India has maintained a non-aligned stance on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, advocating for a two-state solution and balanced relations with both parties. However, under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, there has been a subtle shift in India's position. A recent phone call between Prime Minister Modi and Benjamin Netanyahu has sparked speculation about India's changing stance. Modi's warm words for Netanyahu and the absence of any mention of the Palestinians in his public statements have raised eyebrows. This shift could potentially influence other non-aligned nations and disrupt the delicate balance of international diplomacy. The potential impact of India's changing stance is far-reaching. As a rising global power, India's decisions could shape the geopolitical landscape. However, it's important to remember that every nation's ultimate goal should be the pursuit of peace. As we continue to follow the situation, we must keep in mind that the resolution of conflicts like the Israeli-Palestinian one is a global responsibility, where every nation can play a constructive role. In a startling new development, the Israeli army has reported the discovery of around 1,500 bodies of Hamas militants around the Gaza Strip. This revelation has sent shockwaves through the international community, highlighting the high human cost of the conflict. Critics argue that these numbers underline the urgency of a peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, while supporters see it as a significant blow to Hamas's capabilities. The international community's reaction has been swift, with expressions of shock, condemnation, and calls for an immediate investigation into the circumstances of these casualties. The United Nations, along with several human rights organizations, has stressed the need for accountability and transparency in the handling of this grave situation. This discovery adds another layer of complexity to the already tangled web of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It underscores the urgency for a peaceful resolution and the importance of dialogue and diplomacy in achieving this goal. As we navigate this tumultuous terrain, we'll continue to bring you updates and analysis on the situation. In the next segment, we will examine the role of the international community in promoting dialogue and diplomacy amidst these escalating tensions. Stay tuned for more. In recent news from India, the government has taken a more active role in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. As a rising global power, India's involvement is seen as a significant shift in the geopolitical landscape.
We are heartfelt from the huge support we got from India, from the Prime Minister, through a few ministers who called me businessmen, civil servants.
Our South Asia correspondent Ravi Kumar explains, India's recent diplomatic efforts to mediate the conflict have been met with both praise and criticism. While some see it as a necessary step to restore peace, others question the country's ability to remain unbiased due to its own internal issues. Public reactions in India to the government's stance have also been mixed. Our correspondent shares, in an increasingly polarized society, India's decision to intervene has sparked heated debates among its citizens. Some believe that India should focus on its domestic issues, while others argue that the country has a moral obligation to help mediate in international conflicts. The potential impact of India's involvement on the conflict is yet to be seen. Our international relations expert, Professor Anita Desai, weighs in. While India's involvement could help bring fresh perspectives to the negotiation table, it's also essential to remember that the roots of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict are deep-seated and complex. A lasting resolution will require more than just diplomatic efforts. As India steps onto the global stage, its actions could have far-reaching implications. Our correspondent concludes, "The world is watching closely as India navigates these complex waters. Whatever the outcome, it's clear that India's role in international politics is evolving, and its actions could shape the future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict." Now let's delve into the chain of events that unfolded in October 2023, from the perspectives of both Israelis and Palestinians, as interpreted by our expert panel. On the final day of the Jewish high holidays, in a scenario interpreted as a critical move, Hamas and Islamic Jihad launched numerous rockets from Gaza into Israeli territory. Our expert on Middle East affairs, Dr. John Doe, points out, this was one of the largest offensives we've seen in recent years, affecting civilians and soldiers. From the Palestinian perspective, this was seen as a necessary reaction to prevailing conditions in the region. This action prompted Israel to respond with a series of airstrikes on Gaza. Our military analyst, Colonel Jane Smith, elaborates, the Israeli airstrikes, regarded by Israelis as a justified response to the rocket attacks, were part of the enduring cycle of violence in the region. From the Palestinian viewpoint, these airstrikes symbolized another round of devastating attacks on their territory. The current situation necessitates critical reflection on the potential for peace and resolution. Our correspondent Dr. Emily Johnson comments, the damage isn't just physical. The psychological toll on both Israelis, who endure fear of rocket attacks, and Palestinians, who experience the devastation of airstrikes, vast and will persist for many years. Now, more than ever, it's crucial to explore avenues for peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Examining the roots of this conflict and fostering dialogue could initiate a journey towards resolution. Our correspondent concludes, the ultimate goal should be to break the cycle of violence and build an environment that is conducive to peace and mutual understanding. So, what are the main takeaways from this timeline? First, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a deeply rooted issue, with events in the past year exacerbating existing tensions. Second, political shifts within Israel, such as the potential return of Netanyahu, have a significant impact on the conflict. Finally, the recent offensive launched by Hamas and Islamic Jihad has escalated the conflict to a new level of violence, with devastating consequences for both Israelis and Palestinians. But what does all this mean for the future? The current crisis complicates any potential peace process and puts any talk of a two-state solution on hold. The violence may also disrupt any potential deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia. As we move forward, it's clear that the path to peace is fraught with challenges. This has been a brief overview of the timeline leading up to the current Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Remember, understanding the past is key to navigating the future. Stay informed, stay curious, and most importantly, stay hopeful for a peaceful resolution.